we have to put food on the table, but we also need to be able to start a project and understanding that at that particular juncture we have nothing. And by nothing, I mean financial means. But what we do have, we can use. And that is an idea. And that is, our talent. And that is our bodies. And that is, the spaces that we have.
Mbasa, it's so lovely to meet you here on Zoom.
It is an absolute pleasure and a privilege and an honor to be invited by you. Thank you very much.
No, it's a great pleasure. Where are you based at the moment?
I am currently based, where I was born and bred, which is in little old East London, in the Eastern Cape in South Africa. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, a lot of talent comes from the Eastern Cape, singers and especially singers, and now a filmmaker.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. Thank you for that kind comment. I think, the Eastern Cape is definitely a rich, with creative talent. When we speak of, vocalists and singers, we have Unati, we have the late, great, Zahara. And, speaking to filmmakers specifically, we have award-winning director and screenwriter, Jamil XD Kubega, who I've, had the pleasure and the honor of working with. And it's been a very interesting, journey to traverse. And being from the Eastern Cape is definitely something that I'm very proud of.
But did you grow up in the rural areas of the Eastern Cape?
So no. I grew up in the suburbs. And while I understand the fruits and the privilege that comes with that, I really would have loved to have the experience of growing up in the rural settings, because there's just something beautiful and authentic and holistic and really grounded about that space and about the people from that space. Granted, there are hectic socio-economic issues that are very, very despondent and unfortunate. And I believe that as not only a human being and an Eastern Caper, but as a storyteller, it's imperative for me to bring to the fore the unfortunate circumstances that people go through in that space. So the long and the short of it is I grew up in the suburbs here in East London in the Eastern Cape.
And it's true what you're saying, because it's also so vast, the difference between growing up in the cities in South Africa and in the rural areas. And like you say, you have the opportunity now to tell these stories. And I think it's so important that that the people from South Africa also have pride in this, the rural parts of South Africa.
No. I wholeheartedly, concur with your thoughts. I concur with that statement. And when we speak about the stories, that are produced, that are seen on stage, that are seen, on our screens, I think firstly, the problem resides with the fact that most of these stories, right, that we're telling and that we're putting out there for consumption, most of the time, our target audience and the subjects of these stories are unfortunately the very people who don't have access and the means to actually consume these stories.
Oh, yes.
Because yeah, it's actually quite crazy and ironic because they either don't have access to electricity, which is one of the hugest issues in this country, even for people that are privileged and well off. I mean, I'm sure you're very well aware of load shedding. Um, but also speaking to issues of space. Space has been and is historically, a huge issue. What with apartheid and the Group Areas Act and people of different races not being able to access particular spaces. And the unfortunate thing is, with that particular issue, you will create a production, right? Which speaks to these issues that we're speaking about. But then the very people who should be watching these stories, engaging with them, and who actually understand, what they're about, have to catch a taxi from the rurals, which will cost in and of itself 200 rand, which they don't have. So yeah, it's unfortunate and ironic, and I think instead of having people have the burden of traveling to and seeing these stories that are about them. I think it's imperative that creatives take the stories back to the people. And with COVID, I think we're actually understanding the importance of the arts, and that it's not arts for art's sake, but arts that gets people talking and needs to be consumed, interrogated, and yeah.
But don't you get any help from the government to get these people to experience these films or art projects? You would think the government would be supportive to the artists to bring that to the people.
Yeah, Petra, you bring up a very controversial and very gray and messy, no area. Funding in South Africa, there are agencies, that are there, national and provincial, and I also believe that certain municipalities have funding in place. But it's been a mess. It's been a mess for a very long time, and it's a mess, at the moment. And obviously, personally, let me not speak for other artists. I personally appreciate the programs that are in place, but it's one thing to have monies and funding programs in place, but it's another for the process, to be legitimate and to be open and to be fair. And yeah, there's been a huge issue with regards to programs by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, and yeah, I mean, I've had the honor and the pleasure of receiving funding from these various agencies: National Arts Council, the National Film and Video Foundation, the Eastern Cape Provincial Arts and Culture Council. But without getting into the politics of funding in the country, there are organs, there are agencies. I just think that there's a huge disconnect between the powers that be, that being the minister, and the administrators that sit, in the office. As a huge disconnect between them and the artists on the ground. And what has unfortunately occurred since the dawn of democracy is that administrators and ministers put into governing and leading the arts and culture sector have had no experience and no knowledge, no understanding or appreciation of the creative sector. Minister Gayton McKenzie is doing his absolute utmost to cater for us, but when he came into office, he cemented the fact that he doesn't know much, about the sector, but when it comes to sports, that's where his love and understanding is. And unfortunately, our 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 office is it sits with the Department of Sports, so it's the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. And so long as these two industries are put together, I don't think the issues and the necessary attention that the creative and cultural industries needs in this country will be addressed. So it's unfortunate, but at least there are agencies that exist to try and assist us.
And also, I see a lot of, and I hear also from a lot of people, at the grassroots, really doing their own thing. Like I spoke to Cuba, the storyteller, and he goes around in the Howick area in KwaZulu-Natal and really going to the schools, talking to the children there, and exactly what you talk about, that many of these people don't have the means to go to a theater, so it's bringing it to them. It's like he goes out and he talks to school children, and he gets also, I think, private funding to do it, or private sponsorship to do it. So that's amazing, really, that a lot of artists take it in their own hands to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also in absolute awe of artists, that can not only go out there using their own resources, using their own money in a society and in an economy where things are dire. Food prices are just extremely high. I'm in awe of them. And I remember last year we had the privilege of engaging in a masterclass in Hogsback, which was held by the Department of Literature here in the Eastern Cape, and a revered and respected award-winning playwright, Dr. Zeksimda, took us through a story session. And, we veered off, not necessarily off topic, but we were essentially speaking about, how one can sustain themselves in the sector. And one of the things that he mentioned, which I agree with to the T, is that we cannot rely on government funding. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the project, for its longevity, and it's also not sustainable for one's personal and financial well-being. And the unfortunate thing, Pietra, is that what I have found with the funding calls that are issued by these various agencies, NAC, NFVF, etc., is that back in the day, the late great Athol Fugard, the current great Dr. John Gani, Zeksimda, you see, their projects which premiered decades ago, they are still running, overseas, are still running now. However, when it comes to your post-apartheid pieces, your post-apartheid youth pieces, what people tend to do is that they create a project for a specific call, whether that call is by these funding agencies or it's by a festival that is curating programs, and then post that funding depleting and post that theatre festival finishing, you never see that production again. And for me, that's really unfortunate, because there's no sustainability. There's so that that is what.
But we hear also a lot about corruption in the government, and how that affects then. I'm sure, the first thing that suffers from these corruptions are the arts.
Absolutely. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, I don't want to make any allegations or defamatory, statements. But I think for me, what is very precarious is that, for example, we recently had the National Arts Festival, and the National Arts Council opened a call for funding for fringe programs, and it baffles the mind how projects are funded, because I was speaking to a colleague and a friend who actually works for the festival, and they informed me about a huge conflict that occurred with one or more of the projects which received funding from the National Arts Council for this fringe call. However, when it was checked on the system on the National Arts Festival side, it was found that the applicants' project for the festival, it was denied, so they weren't even part of the program. However, they managed to get funding from the National Arts Council for a National Arts Festival project. So it baffles the mind, and it's quite scary, because you'll have very, very hardworking practitioner community arts organizations, like the Tembisa. I forget their name now, because I'm so enthused and engaged in this conversation.
No, I understand.
You get such brilliant organizations which are really about the industry, but more than anything are about uplifting emerging practitioners who again do not have access to these spaces, to your big theaters, but are sort of like passing on the baton to them and giving them a chance to be able to and catapult them to those spaces. And then you don't get support from the very organizations and government that is meant to support and sustain. So it's unfortunate, Pietra. It's disheartening, but we keep on keeping on, and even in the struggle, we struggle forwards.
And you talking about also the exposure, and I spoke to somebody from Howick in KwaZulu-Natal, and where they, as a community, just pulled together and gave a lot of artists the opportunity to paint the walls in the in the little town, and do street art, and especially Cuba, the storyteller, he's been giving exposure. So sometimes it's these communities that the smaller communities in the countryside in South Africa who are now, I know these Love Howick is their program, and I absolutely want to always give a shout out to them, because they've also now made this has been extended to Love Cities, and they do so much for the community and so much for the arts, in these communities. So it's like people are taking things in their own hands, it seems, now in South Africa.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, a lot of beautiful work is being done. Similar to Love Howick. In the theater scene, beautiful, work is being done. With little to no support, or with in-kind support. And speaking of in-kind support, I think it's imperative for artists, but also for businesses, private, to also understand that when we do approach them, when we do approach you, it's not always to say that, look, we want money. Whatever support you can put on the table, whether it's an advert on your social media page, whether it's supporting meals, during the shoot of a short film, anything to make the work happen. is really wholeheartedly appreciated. And I know in the theatre space, the biggest thing that practitioners from uh, um, uh, all of the various different art forms, whether it's dance or drama, theatre, etc. What we struggle with is space. A place to rehearse, that production. Once it's written, it obviously needs to go into rehearsal. So, if you've got that garage or an office space that you don't need, things like that really do go a long way. And going back to vukuzenzele, waking up and doing it by yourself without, the support of the government. I think in the climate that we live in as South Africans in general, but also as artists, that has become our status quo. I know that with my project, one of my uplifting, upskilling projects, which is the Eastern Cape Screenwriting Laboratory, um, I I got together a group of very talented, very dedicated, very passionate emerging screenwriters, and I said, guys, how's about we get together on a Saturday and we speak about writing, and I'll take you through the process and what I've been privileged to learn, and see where that takes us. And that essentially took us to me inviting my colleagues, my heroes from the industry to come in and speak to them. We had the director of the Bomb Shelter Film Company, Bomb Productions, Mr. Angus Gibson, who is an Oscar award nominee. We had Mr. Shomla Dandala, who's a writer, a producer, and an actor, who came in and spoke to them. And so I think, yeah, that really cemented my modus operandi of, the worst thing that anyone can say is no. You just need to go out there, strike while
Exactly.
the iron
Yeah.
is hot. Yeah, and just ask. They won't kill you.
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
But
just
I always believe in the power of one. It only takes one person to make a change. And this is what you actually doing. You made that decision. I'm going to invite people, and that's the power of one.
thank you, thank you so very much, Petra. Yeah, yeah, man. I'm very, very, very blessed to have the gifts that I have. I'm very, very blessed to have the talents that I have, and I think it would be extremely selfish and unfair of me, to firstly not be able to share these God given talents and these God given gifts, and more importantly, to keep any opportunities or networks that I've had, the honor of building. Um, and as you say, the power of one is imperative, and following that power of one, I think is the spirit of Ubuntu. Umntu ngumntu ngabantu. We are because of others. We cannot, survive or progress as an island. So yeah.
But tell me about your journey. As a child, were you already interested in film?
Yeah, so it's there is actually a a story behind it.
Really?
I in primary school, was introduced to drama. I think it was in grade 4, with Mrs. Joan Pike, who actually still teaches at my primary school, Selborne Primary. And I fell in love. I absolutely fell in love with the art of drama, and the first uh, uh, um, sort of like acting style that I fell in love with was mime. Um, so what Mrs. Pike then did with me and a couple of my other classmates and buddies is we created a group, and we devised short skits, which eventually then made it to our local Eisteddfods. So for a period of 3 years, we entered the Eisteddfods, and I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but I mean, we would receive A quadruple
Really?
pluses. It was insane. I mean, we'd rehearse it to the T, we'd present it, and then we would travel to other schools presenting it, and it was really, really a blast. And then in my grade 7 year, which was 2004, I'm giving away my age now.
Young
Um,
man. Yeah.
um, Mrs. Pike then invited me to audition for pantomime. So, as much as I had grown up in the suburbs, I wasn't from an artistic theatre going community or family. So I had no idea what a pantomime was. Um, but because I loved her and I loved acting, I auditioned one of my solo mime pieces for Amanda Bothma, who is a phenomenal director and writer from East London. Um, Auditioned for her, and yeah, the rest is history. I was cast in the pantomime, and for 2004 up until my grade 11 year, so 2004 until 2008, I was engaged in pantomimes. So my October to Decembers were fully booked with rehearsals and performances, and yeah, that shaped me into the creative that I am in terms of my love for the arts, but obviously also, learning my directing style, from Amanda and, a lady by the name of Michelle Brandenburger, who's now in Australia, who directed me in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. That was my
Really?
first, yeah, that was my first musical, which I also thoroughly enjoyed. Um, so yeah, that's when the journey started, and then with film specifically. Um, in my grade 11 year, I remember my life orientation teacher came to class, and he said, "This is something you'd be interested in." He handed me a DVD, and I thought, it's a film that he wants me to watch, only to find out that it was a competition um, for short films, for screenwriting. Um, and I'd never dabbled in writing for film, but as I've said, struck while the iron is hot. The pitch was for the next day. Um, so I spent, the entire afternoon and the evening developing that story. I pitched, and yeah, my story was selected for development, and I developed, wrote it, and then it was shot at Selborne College in 2008, and then the following year it was shown on SABC One, and they also showed the behind
Amazing.
the scenes.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
thank
And
you.
with no previous experience in filmmaking or in
With no
screenwriting.
with no experience or whatsoever, just a genuine love and passion for
Wow.
storytelling. Yeah.
Mm. So you have the gift, the storytelling gift.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
But
much.
but it's also different experiencing the stage and then writing for film.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It is. Wow. Yeah. It's vastly, hugely different. I mean, it's also like acting, for the stage and the screen. Two totally different, skills that one needs to master. Um, so so in writing a stage play, there are certain given circumstances, that one needs to be cognizant of. Whereas with the camera, um, it's the camera that really does all of the technical work. Um, Stage is a different story in that it's live, and you need to take into consideration again, the environment, the space, um, and the dialogue, that is written is, you can't exactly write a two-page a monologue, for the screen, or have, a 10-page, a scene for a 30-minute episode of Generations. That you have to, be cognizant of certain, elements and rules that come with that particular space. Whereas, on stage, a a 2 minute a 2 minute scene, just absolutely, makes no story sense. It makes no, financial sense, especially if you're working, with a huge set. Um, things like having a character, that has one line and then is never seen again. That can work, for a film or a TV drama. But to have that element or that character in a stage
Oh,
play,
yes.
that doesn't serve the story, yeah, or move it forward, it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, very, very different.
I never thought of that aspect, but yeah, you're absolutely right. That even in character writing, that must be different. But tell me about
Yes,
your
ma'am.
films. Your films, is it EKASI Our Stories?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. ETV used to have an annual call. Yeah, they used to have an annual call out to South African emerging script writers, storytellers, and producers, where, you would submit a synopsis, of a story, and then, submit a motivation as to why you feel that that story should be told at that specific time, etc., etc. Yeah, it was a very beautiful project that they had. I wonder why they actually stopped it, but yeah, I submitted my concept, Fallen Angel, um, and yeah, lo and behold, the proposal was approved for development, which I was very, very chuffed about. And yeah, I was attached to a script editor and a production company, Puapa Productions, which is, a renowned production company famous for the SABC drama, Vaya.
Okay.
So yeah, we developed. I developed the story, and man, I'm hugely, hugely grateful for that opportunity, because I got to learn the ins and outs of, the writing process, professionally. And yeah, and eventually submitted my script, and it was shot. I mean, I wasn't involved with production. I was just the writer of the project, and yeah, I was very happy with the outcome. But even more so, for the opportunity to learn, yeah, and get my foot in the door.
Yeah, I think this is also important for young upcoming writers and directors to know that this is how you learn to be part of these projects.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You know, I more than anything, I'm a silver lining kind of guy, and if there's anything that I've learned in my journey, is that when one's proposal, um, to a funder, to a broadcaster, to a producer, when that project is not approved, or let's call it what it is, rejected, that is not a rejection of you, the person. You know, in many cases, it actually just comes down to the fact that, perhaps the story needs refinement, which is most likely the case, or b, the theater, the festival, the broadcaster, is not, accepting those kinds of stories, because you'll find that, in a particular year or particular season, thrillers and comedies, are the in thing. Yeah, are the in thing, and that they are being consumed the most. For example, during COVID, feel good movies, were the in thing. Horrors were also, for some absurd reason, the in thing. So it's not to say there weren't any good thrillers or dramas out there. It's just that it wasn't financially feasible for Netflix or MultiChoice to accept other genres. So yeah, rejections should be taken as a let me just go back to the drawing book, refine, but don't stop creating and knocking on doors.
Mm. No, that's true. That determination, that just knowing that it's not at that moment possible. I actually spoke
Yes,
to a ballet teacher the other day, and he said that he teaches this to his students as well, that a no is not absolute. It just means it's no at that moment, but it can be that the director would like to see you at a later stage, or that it's just, you shouldn't accept a no as a definite no for anything. But tell me about, is it Knuckle City, is the other film you did?
Yeah. So I had that was also a beautiful experience. So I wasn't part of the creative team. That film, that feature was written and directed by the gentleman I mentioned earlier, Jamil XT Kubeka, a director, a writer from East London, now based in Johannesburg. So I was a supporting character, a supporting actor in that film, and I think, yeah, it's definitely one of the most memorable, most beautiful processes that I've had, in my personal and professional life. Yeah, and that experience really taught me a lot, um, about professional set etiquette, um, but also about how the industry actually works. Uh, uh, I want to say behind closed doors. The things that we assume, but aren't privy to. So it was beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed. I also love acting. Um, um, and I think, as a creative, it's imperative to wear as many hats as possible, but to also, to also know your lane, and to understand, what hat works best, for which project. It's important not to be greedy, but to definitely be skilled, in the various roles, in theater and in film, because, um, going back to the budget constraints and the financial constraints, you'll find that for a project, you may not have the funds to hire a director, DOP, actors, and for like a theater production, you may not have the funds to hire a stage manager, a lighting technician, etc. So having those skills, is very, very, very important, and yeah.
And do you think, because you do acting, and you also said that from a young age in school you did acting, does that help you to say, right, do you think these things overlap? And also, as somebody who's written screenplays, that you as an actor has a different sort of understanding of the script?
That's a very beautiful question. And I think I'm blessed that I have been able, to act, that I started acting. In that it gives me, as you have mentioned, as you have so rightly put it, it gives me a sensitivity, um, and a certain, a proximity and understanding, of of the story that I am depicting, on the page, that will essentially and eventually go on screen or on stage. Because what I have found, as the actor and also as the writer, is that it's not so much about what, in terms of dialogue, it's not so much about what the character says, but how they say it. And what I mean by that is, being cognizant of things like pace, a rhythm, and as it relates to the South African context, we have 12 languages now. We've got an abundance of languages. So being on set and having now to translate an English script into my native tongue, which is isiXhosa. There's a lot of challenges that comes with that, because there are certain words and phrases in English that cannot be directly translated.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Into vernacular. So you'll find a writer, innocently, writes 4 lines of dialogue for this particular character. But now those 2 characters, one is Xhosa and the other is, Sesotho, for example, which happens in a lot of productions. And what is meant to be a 1 to 3 minute scene is ultimately a 7 to 10 minute scene, because it's chunks of vernacular, because of the content that's in English. So definitely, being an actor has opened me up to understanding, those finite details, and also understanding that, the actor is also a human being. Yeah.
But it's you talk about all these detail, and also I wonder sometimes if young upcoming either actors or script writers or filmmakers understand this process, because I spoke to Manera Sullies, who directed the Old Righteous Blues. Do you know the film?
Yes,
And
very well.
she said and I can't remember the woman who wrote the script or who wrote the story. It took her 20
Carol
years.
Shaw.
Yes,
Carol Shaw. Yeah.
Carol Shaw. It took her 20 years to write. And then this film, it took a long time, I think, to make the film. And first, it took a long time to get the funding, and then actually to make the film. And I think that it's such a long span of time before this film eventually even made it on the screen. And that patience and that determination and that belief in the project, it must be something also that for us who see a film and it's 90 minutes long and it's and then it's over, but there's such a path before that, so that people should also understand that.
I think it is the most gratifying and the most beautiful thing to be able to see your project in production, or being produced, being on the screen, or being on stage, after such a lengthy process. And it's both extremely gratifying, it's beautiful, it's fulfilling, but also immensely frustrating, as you've so eloquently put it, having to put the funding together and whatnot. But going back to Carol's example of actually working on the project for 20 years, I think that goes back to my point where I was basically speaking about instant gratification. Had Carol and her team wanted quick funding or money in their pockets, and just decided, let's make this film, get the funding, move on to the next project, it wouldn't have been the official Oscar for South Africa, and the beautiful film, that it was, the memorable film that it is. So there's a time and a place, for everything, you know. Um, I have projects that I'm also hungry to bring into production and to fruition, but I also understand, that it needs to find the right home. It needs to find the right producer. And as much as I may believe that it's the greatest thing under the sun, um, that may not be the case with a prospective broadcaster, prospective theater, or a prospective producer. So patience and perseverance, Petra, are definitely, of the utmost importance. We need to keep on keeping on, and more importantly, as creatives, collaboration is key. It's unfortunate, to see my colleagues, my friends in the industry, and even, the younger folk have, unfortunately, such huge egos, and it's egos that disallow beautiful work to live, you know. Gone are the days where I can send an email or drop a colleague a WhatsApp and say, listen, man, I've got this amazing project. How's about, we get a group of people together. Before I even finish the email or the phone call or the WhatsApp message, the first thing that they say is, okay, how much are you going to pay me? Look, granted, we have to put food on the table. Trust me, I absolutely understand that. We have to put food on the table, but we also need to be able to start a project and understanding that at that particular juncture we have nothing, and by nothing I mean financial means. But what we do have, we can use, and that is an idea, and that is, our talent, and that is our bodies, and that is, the spaces that we have.
I totally agree with you. I also have a project that I'm waiting for, and that you say you sort of you have the idea, you're working on it, and the longer it sits and the longer it's in my mind, the richer it gets. The more I see and the more I realize, and I also realize if I had done it 4 years ago, it wouldn't have been what it is now. And so,
absolutely, Petra. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah.
But tell me, what are your wishes for the future? What is the dream?
The dream, Petra, is for my, production company, Fiction Station Productions. And for myself and for my team, to be able to encourage, to employ, to educate, to uplift, and to upskill emerging, practitioners, and colleagues within the film, television, and theater industries, and to be able to not just have financial security, which is very important, as we've discussed, but that I think is not the driving force behind what I do and why I do it, but to be able to create theater productions, film productions, and television productions that will not just put South Africa, but also put the Eastern Cape on the map. And I guess I'm going to end this particular question with how I began our session. I believe in our country, especially as it pertains to the creative and cultural industries. and I believe more in the Eastern Cape. I mean, if KwaZulu-Natal could do it, I mean, KwaZulu-Natal is flourishing. They have their own film commission. They've got a flourishing a theater, the Playhouse Company, which has been doing great things. And they are an internationally recognized province in the film and television and theater industries. And the Eastern Cape has just as much, if not more, potential to be able to be a world-class a destination, for your international producers and our national and continental, storytellers and producers. So first and foremost, mine is to put the creatives in this province, on the map, collaborate with them, and be a constant and consistent feature on our TV screens, to be a consistent feature on our streaming platforms, to be a consistent feature on firstly, national stages and then even international stages. It's possible. Practitioners shouldn't, have to go out and, which is most of the case and most of the time, struggle, in these big cities, and then come back and feel as though they've failed. There's nothing wrong with coming home when things get difficult. I'm at home, it's been tough, and it's better to go back home, be at peace, clear your mind, and yeah. So that is the goal, Petra, to put this great province of ours, which will ultimately put great country of ours on the map, and have people realize that it's possible. It starts with an idea, and it starts with a collaboration, and the world is our oyster. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I can again say to you, you're more than welcome to contact Matt from Howick, from Love Howick, because he started like that. He started like looking at his town, looking at the dirty streets and everything broken and the potholes, and he just decided to send an email and say, let's get together and let's start cleaning up. And he expected 10 people to come, and the first meeting was 50 people. And from there on, and from there on, this whole project started, where they actually now implementing art in the schools, this, and now Love Howick has become Love City. So, they're willing to help any city. So it's amazing how, again, the power of one person writing the email, one person seeing that things can change, that's so amazing. But Mbasa, you've got such a great attitude. You've got such a positive way of thinking of things. And I really do wish your wishes come true. I do believe that your dream will come true. And congratulations really with the work that you're doing, and that you also understand the power of one, and that you believe in making the change.
Thank you. And thank you once more, Petra. And thank you to you as well. I mean, thank you for the work that you're doing. I think it's beautiful. This platform is absolutely exceptional. And bless your heart. And bless your way forward too. And I do hope that down the line we can rekindle on a chat, and I can update you about bringing to fruition.
Absolutely. Yes, that would be great. Let me know when something. I love to update, because there are a lot of people who made wishes on my channel whose wishes actually came true. So it's always great to catch up and then talk about that.
Oh man, I'm incredibly grateful for that. Thank you, Petra. Thank you so much.
It's a great pleasure.